Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Homewrecker Podcast. I am the Golden Greek Alex Arion, joined as always by my beautiful, lovely, gorgeous, amazing trophy wife, Monique. Monique, how are you this week?
Hello, I'm wonderful, thank you. How are you?
I'm fantastic, as always.
Excellent.
As I bash into the microphone, I'm like the worst
Having
these past
some
couple of
technical
weeks. I don't understand
difficulties.
what's going on.
I feel like when we had the previous new moon, when we're recording this, it's a full moon tonight. And
Okay.
since we've had the new moon 2 weeks ago, I feel like our energies have been like all off. That's what I'm blaming it on. So it should be resolved with this full moon.
Sure, if you say so. It's fine. I'm just saying, I've been bashing into the microphone.
I'm just trying to give you an excuse.
The funny
honey.
thing, thanks. Yeah, and the funny, ironic, whatever you want to call it, the thing about it is, I always gave you such a hard time about talking too close in the mic, not talking into the mic enough, being too far away. Don't hit the mic, don't tap. What's been going on the past couple of weeks? I'm the one hitting the mic cords, I'm bashing into the microphone, I'm hitting the mic stand, I'm toppling things over, I'm all over the place.
It's the universe teaching you a lesson that it's easy to tell somebody to do something. It can
Unbelievable.
happen to you too.
It's unbelievable is what it is. But speaking of unbelievable, this week what we're going to be talking about is something that I find kind of unbelievable.
Yeah.
We'll see what everybody else thinks about it, but it's something we mentioned doing in the past.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about the Green Children of Woolpit.
Yes, the Green Children of Woolpit.
Yeah, it should be very interesting.
When I first heard this story, I was really fascinated by it. I thought it was really interesting and makes you wonder, is it real? And if it is real, what's the cause? Like, what is it? Where are these children from? We're going to go over all of that today.
Yeah, we're going to have a fun discussion, I think.
Yes.
It should be pretty interesting, if nothing else, but maybe a little bit unbelievable for some people. Go ahead.
Well, given one of the more recent theories, it could be more believable than one would think. But I don't know if I want to go with that one. We'll see.
Okay. But before we get into that,
Yes.
we mentioned last week that we are going to be giving the time and date of our little paranormal adventure,
Yes.
our investigation that we're going to be going on. So would you like to divulge that information right now for everybody?
Please mark your calendars. Saturday, February 29th. That's right, leap day. We will be at the Chapman Inn in Bethel, Maine.
That's right. It's a leap year.
It's leap year. So we're
You
going on
mentioned this to me
leap day.
before and I forgot.
You're like, whatever, I'm
Wow.
not paying attention to you. But it's at the Chapman Inn in Bethel, Maine on Saturday, February 29th. And at 9 o'clock, we'll be broadcasting live. So 9 p.m. Eastern Time, you can watch us. I will be on YouTube and Twitter.
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll shoot all the links out to whatever we're going to be doing that day, probably prior to that as well. Obviously, like an hour or so beforehand, we'll be shooting all the links on social media so people can, people that follow us, if you're not following us, I don't know what you're waiting for, but you can get all that information there. So, and speaking of that real quick, why don't we just tell everybody, Twitter, we have
At Homewrecker Pod.
Instagram is
Homewrecker Podcast.
And you can also go on our website and find us at
www.homewreckerpodcast.com.
yes.
Not that hard.
It's really not. We
It's
try to make it
not,
easy.
no.
Try. Anyhow, so yeah, definitely stay tuned for that, and that should be fun.
And we're on YouTube. So if you're watching this, you know.
Right. Yes.
But if you're not, go on YouTube and you can watch us live or on Twitter.
Right. Yes. Please and thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So, do you have anything else going on you want to talk about before we get into this week's topic, this week's discussion?
I don't think so. I'm kind of eager.
You just want to jump into this?
Yeah, I just want to
Let's
jump
talk about
in.
Green kids.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, I'm
They're
down.
interesting.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and get us started? Why don't you tell us all about the story of the Green Children of Woolpit?
The basic story that I think most people are aware of is in a small town called Woolpit, which is located in England.
Is it still there, this town?
Yes, the town is still there.
Okay, so it's,
Mhm.
okay.
Yep, it's still there. I guess the town originally was called Woolpit, Wulfpit, because there's this area, this field area where they would capture wolves. But it somehow turned into Woolpit. The legend goes that one day, these two green children just appeared. They looked totally normal, except their skin was green. They showed up, and they did not speak English.
So they just walked into town?
They just were in this field in Woolpit. And
so Joe Farmer is out plowing the field or whatever, and he just sees
there's two kids
there.
Yeah.
And, okay.
And they just appear, and they're speaking, as many say, gibberish. They're speaking something, but it wasn't English, and it wasn't a language they knew.
Did you explain what they looked like? Yeah.
They were green, yes. I said they were totally normal, except they had green skin.
Green skin.
Yes.
Green skin.
Green.
What?
Like Kermit.
All right. Anyway, go ahead, carry it. Yeah, that's the thing. That's the detail. It's like, okay, yeah, they're speaking gibberish. Okay, whatever. But the skin is green.
Yeah.
How green are we talking? See, this is the thing. What year did this take place? This was in the
12th century.
So we're going now on a story that...
I think it's like allegedly the late 1100s.
So we're talking almost 1,000 years ago, right?
Yeah.
What? So this is obviously a story that's been handed down throughout the centuries.
And
somehow it's
It's
survived.
changed a bit too. There are some variations which we'll go over.
Sure.
Yeah.
But just green. All right.
That must have been jarring to find two kids that are
right?
green.
Well, who knows? Maybe 1,000 years ago. Well, I don't know. Maybe 1,000 years ago, even green skin was obviously not normal, since they made note of it and it became. All right, I'm gonna shut up. You go ahead. Carry on.
So this farmer found these children. He took them in, and they were sick. He tried to offer them food. They wouldn't eat. They would allegedly only eat raw green beans that were growing. And finally, over time, he was able to convert them to, quote unquote, regular food. And the boy ended up dying, but the girl thrived. And I guess eventually, too, the children, their skin turned white. It turned a normal color after so long. And they both
is that detail anywhere that you've been able to find it? Like, how long did it take?
No, I can't find how long.
Okay.
I looked at multiple sources trying to find.
No, okay, that's fine. I just didn't know if
information.
That was a detail that you had come across.
But so the young boy ended up dying. The girl thrived. She did well. And she finally learned English. And then she was able to tell her story, saying that she came from the land of St. Martin. And not every place I could find said this. Some places said it, some didn't. But that where she was, the sun didn't shine like it did there. It was more of like a twilight.
Like it did in England, in Woolpit.
Yeah, and that everything was green.
Everything was green.
Yeah,
where she came from. St. Martin is where she called her?
Land of St. Martin.
Okay.
Or St. Martin's Land kind of varies depending on.
Do we know how the boy died? Was that ever?
He was just sick.
Okay,
I couldn't find an exact, again, these kids came out of nowhere, and...
So we're to assume that he was, I know, again...
The way the story goes almost makes it sound like they were from somewhere else where... It's like they weren't used to our earth. They weren't used to our oxygen or our food or whatever it was, so they weren't able to they weren't quite compatible. That's the way the legend makes it sound.
Okay. Back to the story. Sorry, these questions are popping up. I'm like...
Why don't you let me actually talk and finish?
You're right.
And just wait a second.
No, you're right.
Thank you.
Please go. I'm going to shut my mic off.
Oh my goodness, this guy. Feel better now?
Go ahead.
Okay, you sure? The farmer took these children, the boy died, the girl thrived, and allegedly she ended up marrying, but she told her story about where she was from, but she said she couldn't find where they originally came from because she didn't remember a lot of stuff. Now, there are variations of the stories. in terms of how it's said that the children arrived in Woolpit. One story says that they were in their family's field tending their flock, and they heard the sound of bells, like church bells, and they were entranced by the sound. And then the next thing they knew, they were in the field of Woolpit. Another legend says that they were wandering and they found a cave. And they went through the cave and there was a bright light. And they went through the light at the end of the cave. And then they were in Woolpit. And then a third version kind of married those two, where the children were walking and they heard the sound of bells. They followed the sound, which led them to a cave. Well, in the cave, they got lost. And then finally they found a bright light, and then they were in Woolpit. So there's different stories. The one I originally heard was that these children were wandering in a cave and they found a bright light, walked through, and they entered Woolpit. And that's why there's a lot of speculation. Are these kids from Inner Earth?
Yeah, that's always how I heard the story, or a variation of the story, was when I'd be reading about different Hollow Earth theories and different things about Inner Earth and that kind of thing. That's where this would always come up for me. So there's so many questions, obviously, that I already started asking you, but now I know it's the research.
Can't take you anywhere.
I just keep hitting my microphone. I apologize. I'm not even going to edit this on the audio.
Whatever.
You're just going to hear it as everybody is seeing it. The research, obviously, that you do is all hearsay, it's stories, because again, this happened so long ago. So we're going to assume that this did actually happen. It wasn't just some kind of a fairy tale that was passed down throughout the ages. We're going to assume that this was something that actually did happen.
Yes.
We have 3 different versions of this story. We're going to go under the assumption it's real.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 kids. They walk, somehow they end up in a field. We have a version saying they heard church bells and followed the light. They walk.
Well, one is they heard these bells, these chimes that they weren't familiar with.
And they
became
them.
Entranced.
Okay, so almost
and then
like
the next thing, it's almost like they were teleported or something. So that makes you think, could it be a time slip of something where they're in another time or maybe dimension, and then they slip in, they just couldn't get back? Because most time slips, people kind of eventually get back to where they are.
They end up back. Right.
Okay. And then there's one where combine the two, where they heard these bells and they followed the sound, which led them to a cave. While in the cave, they got lost. Inside the cave, they found a bright white light.
They walk out. The white light is actually outside and now
they're in Woolpit.
So they walk out. They get into this field. According to this version of the story that you're talking about, was there a cave around, or is it like they walked into this bright light?
That's the thing. That's what I can't find, because they're talking about this cave, but nobody can find this cave.
Okay.
Obviously,
that's what I was wondering.
There's no mention of, there is a cave nearby. I think for some people that they'd obviously probably go explore the cave, but
right. But that's why I was asking, because I know the sources that you find, they're all either online or they're books, but they're all. It's not like you have the original account of what happened. You're going by stuff that's been written throughout the years, and obviously stories that have been told from generation to generation. They're handed down. It's like the game of telephone. Right. So who knows what the original story was? We right now have 3 different versions that we know of. There may be more. Who knows?
Yeah.
So I guess that's why I'm asking these questions, because I know that you obviously weren't there, but I just didn't know if some of the questions I'm asking, if these were details that you happen to pick up in any of these accounts.
I tried looking. So, for example, the cave. I thought, well, is there a cave mentioned at all? Anyone mention a cave in the land of Woolpit? But I couldn't find anything.
That's
shy of doing like a Google satellite map search.
But even
that, you might not see
We're talking about something that happened allegedly 1,000 years ago.
We have some listeners in England, so maybe everyone in England listening, if you know about the town of Woolpit, if you are near that, are there any caves? Because I couldn't find anything. Let us know.
Yeah, let us know for sure. Yeah, I definitely. But that's the thing too. Even if there was a cave or something where it happened so long ago, I mean, who knows? It could have. it might not be there anymore, or it's been
It's
covered over or
possible.
something. You know, who knows?
Maybe some kind of underground tunnel. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just kind of
But that's
bizarre.
one version of the story.
It is.
And now, do we know roughly what their age was when they appeared?
It just said a young boy and a young girl, and from what I could
Were
find,
they twins?
It didn't say.
And we don't
It
know
just
who was
said-
the younger or the older?
No.
None of that? Okay.
It's weird because the way that I read stories, it's almost like it gives you an impression, but it's not clear. So I don't want to state something that isn't necessarily factful, even though we're talking about something that can't even be proven as a fact. But again, I couldn't find it anywhere being specific, clearly stating it, so I don't want to.
Yeah, no. And again, that's why I'm asking these questions. Just
Like
because...
some of the stories implied that the sister was older, but other stories made it sound like the brother was older, so it's really tough to say.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I'm not trying to. I'm just asking because you've researched this more than I have.
Yeah.
I know what I've heard throughout the years. And
But
just
that's the
my
thing.
basic general knowledge of the subject. I didn't know if you would come across some of this stuff. I'm just trying to see, just to get some clarification.
No, absolutely.
Just because you're a little more familiar than I am with it.
I think most people who are familiar with this topic, they've heard a general story. And then based off that general story, they start trying to think of the conclusion of how did this happen? They try to figure it out. What is it? I tried to really search and find out as much as I could. Even England, like I looked up like the town of England. I did a good amount
Look up the town of England.
I'm sorry. Oh my God. I looked up the country of England, the town of Woolpit. Yeah.
I gotcha.
And I looked at a map on Google of the town and trying to get an idea.
Yeah.
I was looking up like, what does Woolpit look like? Because of something we're going to talk about later on. I did some extra research.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you think that this is a legitimate thing? Do you think these kids, that there were kids that actually showed up and
I do.
that they had green skin? Now, there's in researching the story and everything, I presume there was pictures, right? Obviously not real photographs, but
There were illustrations.
illustrations.
There's one common picture, if you look up the Green Children of Woolpit, that looks like an actual photograph of these two children, a boy and a girl. But you know
well,
how you
obviously
can do
can't
like
be
photo
able to-
editing where like you can make like the skin color change so they have green skin. It's not a real photo of kids with green skin.
Yeah, obviously because
Yeah,
this
but
happened
a
so
lot
long
of it
ago,
are
it wasn't cameras.
illustrations, drawings where the children have.
Are these
skin.
illustrations, to the best of your knowledge, are they illustrations that were drawn by somebody that was a
Oh, I don't know.
witness?
I don't know because there's so
Okay.
many, and then there are other variations, and people put filters on them to
Okay.
look a little more green, and there's all these different things. So I didn't look up who drew what and when. It was more of a trying to get an idea of what these kids look like. But
Yeah.
in the pictures, they all look a little different. I guess a few of them kind of give them that kind of cheruby kind of look because they're young children.
Sure.
But I couldn't really find anything where it's like, oh wow, that could be a true drawing from back then. And think about, where were they? They were in a farming town.
Yeah.
You know, not necessarily
I know.
going to be a lot
just-
of artists on hand.
Wow. That's quite the judgment you're making there.
I'm just saying.
Because it's a farming town, they can't draw.
I didn't say that. I was just saying
I'm
to stop
offended,
it.
Monique. I'm offended by your language.
I know, because that's my goal, is to offend everybody.
Just obviously teasing you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we obviously there's nothing that you could find that's like close to the time period as far as any kind of an artist's rendering or illustration. Okay,
To find the true root of things, it gets very difficult.
well, with something this old,
Yes. Yeah.
obviously, yeah. But again, that's why I'm asking the questions, because I just want to know what's out there as far as the information goes. Now, the boy dies.
Yes.
All we really can gather from anything is that he was ill.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if he showed up ill or if he fell ill. Correct?
They make it sound like both the kids were kind of sick
When they showed
when
up.
they showed up,
Okay.
but
so
they were
they're
also
both-
green. So
There is that. There is
Yeah.
that detail.
Yeah, they were both kind of sick, but the
Okay.
boy just couldn't get 100%, and he ended up dying.
So, okay. And we know that all they ate was the green beans.
So all they ate were raw green beans at first growing out of the ground. And again, it's going to play into my thoughts.
Boy, if we could just get our kids to eat green beans, wouldn't that be something?
We have one. One of them does.
Well, one of them will.
Yeah.
I digress. Yeah.
But so the normal kind of meat and potatoes kind of meal, they wouldn't eat.
So they wouldn't eat what the regular townsfolk of Woolpit would eat.
Mm-mm. No.
Which obviously those townsfolk found pretty strange because...
It's food.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to eat just like raw green beans.
Which again would add to the legend, the mystique of where these kids are coming from. If they can't recognize the food that everybody's eating and they've got green skin, there's something going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. There's also a theory that the girl, she grew up to marry royalty. And
Wait, you say there's also a theory. What was the first theory?
No, there's a theory going out beyond this story that as the girl got older, she married royalty. And her name was Agnes.
So that's a theory. That's not...
It's nothing. So here's the thing. It can't be proven. And that's why I'm saying it's a theory.
Okay.
Because if you look up the record, there is nothing tying this woman to her being one of the Green Children of Woolpit. And that's why it's difficult, because everything is supposedly, allegedly, in theory, because you can't quite prove it.
It makes you wonder, where did that start? That this royalty, this Agnes, was the actual little girl. It makes you wonder, how did that theory start?
The way the story, one of the stories that included this read was, as she got older, she learned English, she started talking, saying what she could remember about where she came from and how she got to Woolpit. And then as she got older, she married royalty. But then when you keep reading, there's nothing to prove that this woman in history was one of the Green Children from Woolpit. So you can't quite prove it.
Okay.
They're again being unable to prove the whole thing.
Just as in the dark now as I was when I asked the question.
Because there's no real answer.
Thanks for clearing that up.
There's no real answer.
Okay, so we've got the three different versions of the story.
Mm-hmm.
One of
about how the kids got there.
One of them veers off, and now we have this woman is royalty, allegedly, possibly, maybe.
Became married royalty. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What else?
So it brings about the theories of where are these kids
where are they from? So the woman, the girl, allegedly grows up, becomes royalty, learns English.
Yeah,
starts communicating what she can remember.
Yeah.
And she says they came from St. Martin.
Land of St. Martin.
Land of St. Martin.
St. Martin's land, depending on what you read.
And what does she mention about the sun?
As I said before, they mentioned how the sun didn't shine like it did in Woolpit. It was almost like a constant twilight.
Which may be, again, why so many people think they came from the inner earth.
Mm-hmm. That with the cave.
Yeah. All right.
So there's...
Does she mention anything else about the land that she came from, or is the sun the major thing that she remembered?
Different stories that I've read had different bits of information. Some didn't even mention the light. It was just everything was green. But the majority talked about the sun not shining. It was like a constant state of twilight. And then some other places included that, and that everything was green where they were. Which makes me wonder, is that really what happened, or is somebody just adding that in because they were green children, and they just kind of threw that in there to make it fit in?
When you said that, that's what popped into my head was, now, if there's no sun, and it's constant twilight, well, there still would have to be a source of light from something somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Because how else would you know that that everything was green?
Yeah.
If there's no light to see with.
Yeah. Well, twilight. Yeah.
I mean, when we talk about twilight in the world now, in our reality, whatever you want to call it, we're talking about the light that comes from the stars and the moon.
Yeah. So where is that?
So there's some light. There's a light source that gives us
Yeah.
something.
Not to mention, if everything's green and there's no sun, there are plants that grow at night, and there are plants that can grow in the dark. But to have everything green,
Right. That's
Yeah.
the thing that's kind of I don't know.
just something to think about. So
Yeah.
there are the theories.
All right. So let's get into the theories. Let's dissect these.
Yes.
Let's figure this out if we can.
1, the children came from inner earth,
Right.
which we talked about.
Yeah.
2, the children are aliens. 3,
Okay.
it was a kind of time slip that they just weren't able to get back to their own time or dimension. And 4, this is the one, a more recent theory.
More recent, as in like our lifetime recent, or
I believe so.
okay.
As modern medicine and knowledge has advanced.
Yes.
This theory is that these children actually were Flemish. And
Flemish.
yes, from Flanders, which was a country I guess was in like kind of by Belgium. And during that time, the king was persecuting Flemish people. So there's a theory that these children, their parents were killed during the civil unrest, and that they had fled from where they were. It's mentioned, and I have to look at my notes to get the town right. It's mentioned that they could have come from Farnham, St. Martin. Now, Farnham, St. Martin is located in England, and it's about a 3-hour walk to Woolpit. So they say they come from the land of St. Martin. There's a Farnham, St. Martin in England, a 3-hour walk away.
Was this Farnham St. Martin, was it around, and was it called that back when these children showed up?
I couldn't find that exactly.
Okay.
It's implied that yes, it was, but I did look at a map of England, and that's how I found it, and I took the walking directions.
So
How
so
far
it
away
exists
is
now.
it? It exists, yes.
So right as of today, it exists.
Yes.
But we want to know. Okay, but,
I'm
but
not
we don't,
sure.
But we don't know the answer to whether or not it existed as that name back
Mhm.
then. Okay.
But the children were speaking Flemish, which is why these
I thought
people...
the children were speaking. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the theory. Okay.
The theory
sorry.
is that
Yes,
these
yes.
children
Okay.
spoke Flemish, which is why it was an unrecognizable language that these people didn't know. Apparently, the town of Farnham St. Martin took in Flemish immigrants. That's kind of where they fled to. So it's possible these kids, they lost their parents, they were very malnourished, and they got chlorosis, which is also known as hypochromic anemia. And it's a type of anemia that turns your skin green. So the theory is these children were very malnourished.
So it's a legitimate condition.
Yes. It's a legit condition that can turn your skin green. So these children, they lost their parents, they're malnourished, they're ill, they're sick, and they are walking away, and they just walk and walk until they land in Woolpit 3 hours later.
That seems like a pretty plausible theory.
It does. It
Doesn't it?
seems plausible.
I almost don't want to even explore the other ones now because of that. We should probably save that one for last.
I did. That's why.
Well, but we didn't expand on the alien theory, the time.
But we're
slip
going to talk
theory.
about it all.
Okay.
Let's talk about Inner Earth, because that was the first thought I had when I heard about this story.
Yes.
That or time slip.
Mm-hmm.
If these kids came from a couple towns over, how would a cave come into it? Or the bell story, if they were hearing bells, even if it was from like a church, how is it they get entranced and just be in a field? Something is weird. Now, maybe it's just that her misremembering when she's telling the story. Maybe people over time took stuff out to give it more of an allure. But
or added stuff in. To
Yeah,
get more of an
but if
allure.
you take it for what it is, that these kids just appeared or they wandered through a cave to this town. If she just walked from one town through like a couple towns to Woolpit, wouldn't you think she would have said, oh yeah, we were here and we just walked here? Right?
You would think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it doesn't, that last theory just doesn't quite fall in. Everything seems to fit except for what she says of the way that they got there. Granted, there are variations of that, but either way, it doesn't quite mesh.
Okay, so that's the hole in the story that you're looking at. Now, what about the second theory?
That they fell into
some kind of a time slip and they just never came back from it. Now, with the time slip, right?
Yeah.
If that's the case, we're assuming that time slips happen because the person that's experiencing it or that goes through it is going through some kind of a vortex or a portal, right?
Yes.
So we're to assume that if this theory was correct, that some kind of a wormhole, a portal, something
was open for these kids to go through
pass through it, and maybe because they were kids, they just kept walking because they were scared or they ran away or whatever, and wherever they came through, they never had a chance to go back to where they came from because they missed it or the portal closed or
maybe,
they were too far away.
And what's weird is we've heard stories about alleged time slips where people, they were traveling, like those girls in the car that we talked about a couple weeks ago. They were driving. There is movement with these alleged time slips, but what's weird is that for some reason these kids weren't able, they didn't just like appear back in their own time. Now, it makes you wonder, these green kids, let's say they were from Fornham, St. Martin.
Yeah.
And let's say they did have chlorosis or that anemia. Maybe they're from a different time. Maybe they're from somewhere in the future. Or maybe they're from really far back in the past. I don't know. A time slip could still be possible.
Okay, so we're not going to close the door on that.
I'm not closing the door on that either.
Fair. Fine. No problem. What about the next theory?
Children are aliens.
Children are aliens. What do we think about this one? And why do people assume they're aliens? Just because of the green skin?
I get because they're different. They have green skin. I'm not feeling that vibe.
Have you heard any plausible explanation or theory as to why?
Nope.
So it's just because of the green skin. That's the only
From
reason
what I read,
why.
because they're different. They have green skin. They just appeared. They saw a bright light. They didn't speak English.
Food, that kind of thing.
Again, that fits more with like Inner Earth or a time slip.
Right, but there's still the part about them being aliens is, aside from the green skin, they still are essentially human because they have to eat food, they have to drink water, they can get sick, they die, as we saw the young boy dies. So they're still essentially human because the girl changes and
they're organic
adapts and becomes
they're organic
like
you could
us
say.
or from by appearance becomes like us, maybe even allegedly marries into royalty.
You could say that about an alien. We don't know how they make up.
But I'm just saying that the aliens thing, there was never any saucer, there was never any kind of a craft or anything that was ever mentioned in any of the stories.
It's based off the children.
They just appeared and walked in
to
the field. So it's not like we have any kind of a craft or something else unexplained other than them just appearing. That's it. We don't have any other, I guess, a proverbial leg to stand on to call it an alien thing.
Now, with the last theory about the children being Flemish, the one thing that strikes me odd is if there were Flemish immigrants in England at the time, they're being persecuted, nobody would have picked up, like, especially if a couple towns over, there's a place where there's Flemish immigrants, nobody would have said, oh, that could be Flemish.
But
they could be from Flanders.
But think about a second now. You're thinking of this in terms of your mind and society, the way we operate.
True, and if it's a small farming town, that it could just be very
if
possible.
If they're 3 hours walking distance away, they didn't have the internet. They didn't have TV or
I
radio
know that,
back
but they
then.
would probably be aware of the civil unrest going on in their country.
Would they?
I don't know.
I mean, in this country today, we have the Amish that are in this country.
I am just trying to make this theory
And
less
they-
plausible so it could be from inner Earth or a time slip. Okay.
Okay, as long as you can admit that.
Yes.
Because if that was your only reasoning,
I
I just shot
trying
holes
here.
through that one.
Ugh.
Big time. You know me. I love and find these stories so fascinating. I always have. But with this latest theory, I'm like, well, yeah, that's it. That makes complete, total sense. Everything about this theory. No, I'm sorry. That to me,
Why
I'm sold
doesn't
on
she
that
remember
one.
just walking 3 hours? And plus, they're little kids, so it probably took longer.
We don't know their age because that's nowhere on record on any of these stories, right?
Even if let's
We
say
don't
she was
know.
10 years old when she got there,
Okay.
it might take a little longer than an adult.
Okay. We don't know really any other details other than 3 versions of a story that have been handed down through centuries. Again, I'm going to go with the children were Flemish immigrants. They were
That had sclerosis. They had anemia.
Yes, that's what I'm going to
Which
say.
is why when they started eating normal food, their skin turned normal.
Turn normal. Yeah, exactly. That's why, that to me, that theory makes the most sense. Maybe the people in Woolpit, they're just farmers. They don't give a shit what's going on 3
It could be.
hours away. They
But
don't
why
care.
does
Maybe
she
they don't
remember
know.
either a cave or bells? And
That's
then
in
just
a-
appearing.
That's in a version, one of the versions of the story.
Mhm.
We are, again, taking 3 different versions of stories. We're not sticking with one.
Okay, let's just stick one.
So,
Pick one.
you want to stick one. Where
Let's
you
just
wanna
stick with one. I'm
you
going to
stick
stick
that?
it somewhere
Let's
where the
stick-
sun
let's
doesn't
stick one.
shine.
Okay, so let's stick with one because that's the thing. We're talking about these things, but we're using 3 different versions of a story. We're kind of meshing them into one.
Okay, so let's just stick with the cave. That's the story I think most people are familiar with.
Okay.
The kids wandered through a cave. If they came from a town a few hours away, where'd the cave come from? Where's the bright light?
I'll squash that right now. They walked allegedly from 3 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
They may have seen a cave. Again, hold on now. Before you pass judgment, they walked it's a 3-hour walk.
Mm-hmm.
They are alone.
Yes.
They're young.
Mhm.
They're hungry. They're
Mhm.
thirsty. They're tired.
They're sick.
Their parents were killed allegedly.
Or their
They're
parents
not-
are not there.
They're ill. They're delirious. They may have seen some things on their travels from St. Martin to Woolpit. They may have noticed a couple of things. And remember, they couldn't properly communicate for a time until the girl learns English. Now,
Yeah.
the girl learns English, but before that, her brother, who I would presume is close to, dies. So she suffers that trauma,
Mhm.
which can also mess with somebody's memory. I think maybe these stories she told are true, but she just may be misremembering things. Maybe she's, again, communicating the best way she knows how to communicate what she saw or what she experienced, and the people taking her communication are interpreting it, a certain way. And again, these stories have been passed down over 1,000 years. So I think
So you're
the
saying,
children were Flemish immigrants.
So you're basically saying you can't really take what this green little girl said as fact because she doesn't know what
Exactly.
she's talking about.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Absolutely. Because, and nothing against the girl, or because she's a girl, it's not what I'm saying.
No, obviously.
I know. But just all of the different, if you take all the different circumstances that got her allegedly to this point, you take all that into account, I can see where the cave, the bright light, all this stuff, maybe she was hallucinating when she was seeing this bright light, or her and her brother was Now remember, the story is from her point of view. The brother is dead. He's died. So we don't know what he said. Maybe this girl was a pathological liar. We don't know. We have no idea. She may have just been prone to
the
tell us
pathological
crazy
lying
stories.
Green Children of Woolpit is that
We
what
don't
you're trying
know.
to spin?
I'm just saying. I'm not trying to spin anything. I'm just throwing stuff out there because these are all things that are possible, and these are all
Anything's
things
possible.
Yes, because again, this is what holds the most water as far as proof and what could actually really have happened. Being aliens, there's not.
Okay, I'm gonna throw aliens out there. I don't think that's the case. No,
absolutely not. A time slip? Okay, maybe, but not likely. And the children coming from inner Earth, again, maybe, but with this latest theory and the way it's explained and everything else, not likely. The only hope you have for that theory to not be true is finding out whether or not Saint Martin existed back then as that name, as Saint Martin, because that's the only thing we're not clear on. So if we can find that information
Now,
out,
what if it didn't?
if it didn't, I would say maybe time slip. Maybe. But that's why that whole theory, for me, if you're going to sell me on that one, it all hinges on whether or not Saint Martin existed back then at the time that these children showed up as Saint Martin. It wasn't called something else. It was called Saint Martin. Because if that's how she referred to it, allegedly, if that's how she referred to this place, if it existed as Saint Martin then, they were Flemish immigrants. That's what happened. But if it didn't, and say it didn't come up until 300 years later or something, or even 100 years after the fact, maybe time slip.
Okay, so I will do more research. I'll see if I can find it.
I know it's a tough one, because this now you're having to go into all kinds of different records and
If
whatever.
anyone's a history buff, especially our listeners in England, do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody knows or knows how to find this, I mean, we'll do some research. We'll try to figure that out. But that's the only thing that we need to find out, I think, to give a more definitive, yeah, it was this, or yeah, it was this. That's a detail. That's
or we could just go with time slip or inner Earth.
No, I think that's the detail that we need to figure out. Did St. Martin exist?
All right, we will find that.
But if it didn't, then I'm going to say, well, maybe we got ourselves a time slip here. Or maybe we do have these kids coming out of the
Part of me would just feel like it didn't exist back then. But I don't want to lie.
But that's not what we do here.
We want the truth.
We want the
as
truth.
Disappointing as it may be.
We try to figure it out for ourselves and for you, who are taking the time to watch and to listen.
I have to say, when I read about the theory that the children were Flemish immigrants with sclerosis, I was kind of disappointed. I thought it was cool, scientifically, figuring that out.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, well, they're eating green beans. Is it wherever they're from, they're eating so much green? You know how you eat too many carrots and your skin can turn orange?
Yeah, but I read somewhere that you have to eat
a
many
ton of carrots. Yeah, Karen Carpenter, all she ate was carrots.
Right,
yeah. I worked with somebody who ate carrots all the time. She started getting orange to her skin. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay.
But I thought, could that happen with greens? I haven't heard of it. And that's when I started looking it up and I learned about sclerosis and the anemia. And I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. But it's kind of disappointing because these stories are so fun. And it makes you think, what else is out there?
It's a fun story. That's the thing.
This
it's
ruins that illusion of this magic out there, that there's something else going on. I still believe it, that there's other stuff that goes on, but I feel like when you bring this stuff in, it might be true, but it takes it away just a little bit.
Well, I was going to say, when you told me this theory, you came to me the other day and you said this exact thing, and I went, aha, that's what it is. I had no doubt that that's what it is. But I mean, as we talked about it a little more here today, again, I'm resting on that one detail about the town, if St. Martin existed back then. But these stories can still be fun. That's why we talk about them now. I mean, we're dissecting them. Obviously, we're trying to come to a solution and to a conclusion. But the thing with stuff like this is, it happened 1,000 years ago. We're going to come to a conclusion that's satisfactory for us. Maybe we convince people that are listening to us, and we give them some more information so that they can make up their minds. But the fact is, we're never going to actually know for sure.
But like we tell everyone, do your own research. You might discover something else that we couldn't find.
Sure, yeah. Absolutely.
Look into it for yourself and make your own decisions.
Yeah, but we don't have to, just because we're picking these stories apart doesn't mean they got to lose their fun or their...
I think we should just leave it alone and not try to
Of
see
course you do.
if St. Martin existed back in the late 1100s. Let's just leave it alone. And that way it can just be whatever it is.
Okay. Do you have any other thoughts about the Green Children of Woolpit that you want to get off your chest? Other than, damn it, it's what I think it is.
Again, that's just me wanting it to be something else.
I get it. And look, the story, it's again, it's fascinating, it's intriguing. It captured my imagination when I first heard it. I've always wondered about it until now. Now I've made up my mind.
You're like, no, I don't care what anyone says.
No, that's not true. I to me, that's a satisfactory answer for me of what happened. But I'm always open. If there's new information that comes out, I'm open-minded. I'll listen to it. You can change my mind. I'm not that stubborn that I can't change my mind. But I think, there's obviously weird stuff that happens, but it's just trying to figure out the different variables and the different circumstances that come into these reports.
What I think is awesome, though, is regardless of anything else, there was a person from this town, a farmer, who took in these kids. He took in these kids, he fed them, he took care of them. And,
times were different back then.
And again, I think that's just something else that I love about this story, is just these kids, regardless of where they're from, who they are, they were in need of help. And you have somebody who was just like, okay, yep, I'm going to take care of you. And they were green. So that's probably like super freaky. Like, okay, you're green, but you need help. And I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and someone's at our door.
What in the hell?
I think it's the people, or the politicians. Hold on. We're back. It was Amazon.
All right, go ahead. What were we talking about? Oh, yeah.
Just how awesome it was that
somebody took in
these green kids.
Sure.
These kids are green, and it was just like, oh, you need help, I'm going to help you. And I just love that.
You're always finding the good in everything.
That's what I do.
It's fantastic.
Thank you.
I love you. I'm very lucky to have you.
Aw, thank you. I love you too. And Six loves me. If you're watching, you can kind of see a bit of our cat, Six, but if you're listening, you might hear her purr.
Yeah, she's pretty loud.
Yeah.
Hey, okay. So we're going to move on now, right?
Yeah.
We've
got
everything.
Green Children of Woolpit. But I want to hear from other people. Have you heard a different version of this story? It's like these little bits that kind of get changed along the way.
I'm curious if there's any other green people stories that show up throughout history. Have you ever heard of anything else? This is the only thing I can think of. I'm sure there's other stories. It's the only one I can think of. This is the one that I've heard time and time again. I'm curious if there's any other stories throughout history of green beings or kids
there has to be because of the chlorosis, but maybe
but
something
at
that time.
Yeah, something with this kind of a story behind it, I guess. Not necessarily an Earth, but just like a weird appearance of somebody that's green skinned. I don't know.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And
fascinating.
Not an alien.
Yes. So again, we're going to be going away.
Yes.
And doing our show from the road.
Yay!
On location.
Yes.
In a haunted inn.
Yes. That's kind of our thing. It's what we do. We go to haunted inns and we check them out.
So it should be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm really curious. I want to see the white lady, and I want her to go shh when I look at her.
And I'm gonna say, get out of my room. No,
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, you'd probably be like, can I make you a cup of coffee?
Like,
Or
sit
would you
down.
like some tea?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're going to be going on location. I'm really, really curious about this one. I'm excited.
I'm really excited.
I'm wondering what it's going to be like. I'm wondering if, it'd be really messed up. We're pumping this whole thing up. We're talking about it. We're going to be putting it out on social media. We're going to be ready to go, and all of a sudden, all the electrical stuff fails. Wouldn't that be something?
Well, so I've gone through everything that we have. I've pulled out all of our old equipment, and I've gone through to make sure we have batteries. That I've checked the batteries, everything works. I want to make sure we have backup batteries.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like the
Yeah.
laptop, the mics,
Well,
the
I keep
mixing
thinking,
board, all
like-
this stuff just fails.
Well, I always,
Wouldn't that be something?
I'm a
I'm
planner,
prejudiced.
so I try to that's one of the things well, what if something falls apart and we can't get there? Or what if we get there and there's no power? Trying to have these backup. I mean, we can still do our show using our phones. We can, there are ways we can make it work.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. It would be something because you're in a place that's haunted, and you always see that different electrical interferences and things like that happen. So I'm just curious if that's going to.
Well, that's why I'm trying to bring lots of battery backups for everything. But I always every time we go on these paranormal adventures, I'm just so excited to get something, just this one little something, and it's always nothing. I don't feel anything when I
Nothing
walk
has
in the
ever
room.
happened.
Nothing. I don't.
Ever.
It's I don't even feel anything walking in the room. I don't
Right.
know getting there. There's no feeling of anything.
Yeah.
And so I'm just so curious when we get there. Are you going to be able to feel anything? Will I feel anything? Will we see anything or hear anything? Will anything at all happen?
Yeah. That's my biggest fear going into concern. I guess I'm not really afraid of it, but that's my biggest concern is we get there and
Yeah, a whole lot of nada.
nothing. It's just
You know what?
again another
We're still
place
gonna
that
have
is
a
just
fun
getting
time.
people to go there by using that as a marketing ploy. I don't know.
Or it could just be maybe it doesn't want to be around our energy.
Yeah.
They
It
could
could
just
be.
stay away from us. It doesn't mean that it's not
that Greek
haunted.
guy smells. Stay away from him.
Oh,
He stinks, or some. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just trying to have fun.
okay.
But I don't think I smell.
No.
At least I hope not.
No, I wouldn't be sitting next to you.
Great, thank you. So that's going to be happening on February 29th.
Yes.
It is a leap year.
Leap day.
Leap day. And 2020 is a leap year. Fantastic. So I wonder if that's going to have any bearing on anything that may happen. Or
I
may
don't know.
not happen.
I chose it because it's what worked with our schedule.
It just so happened. Yeah, it's pretty neat. So that's going to be happening then. And did we decide on a time?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
9 p.m.
Eastern.
Saturday
Standard Time.
night. Yes.
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 So yeah, that's 9 p.m. Eastern.
On our Twitter and YouTube.
Yes. So yeah, it should be fascinating. Wouldn't it be awesome if we go live at 9 and all of a sudden this white woman just shows up and we're like, huh?
So that just happened. All right.
Wouldn't that be something?
We roll with it.
You never know.
Yeah.
So it should be a good time.
I'm kind of going with trying to have no expectations in mind. Being planned, planning for everything, being prepared for anything, but just having no expectations.
Yeah, that's especially after the disappointments we've had thus far. Every time we've gone and done
What do
something
I always
like this.
say? Don't set expectations because you can just end up disappointed.
Right.
Yeah.
Wise words from a beautiful lady.
Thank you.
Yes. So again, our social media. People can find us, and we hope you do, on our Twitter.
At Homewrecker Pod.
We have Instagram.
Homewrecker Podcast.
And one more time, our website is.
Homewreckerpodcast.com.
And go there and sign up and become a member of our forum.
Yes.
Interact with us and with other people. Let's have some fun discussing these topics that we talk about every week on the show. Nothing is off limits. And if there's a topic you'd like to have us discuss or talk about in the future, let us know.
Yeah,
Either
tell
on
us.
any of our social
We've
media
actually gotten
platforms
some.
or.
We've gotten requests, so it's kind of working them into things that we've already planned.
Yeah. So we're listening
Yes.
to you. the couple of the shows that we've done thus far have been because
Requests,
people have requested us to talk about them and do them. So we're all about that. And again, if you mention something to us, we'll get to it. We promise. We'll get to it eventually. And as you've seen in the past, we'll do more than one show on a topic. We'll revisit stuff. We have no problem going back to it.
So if we talked about something and you feel we missed something or you want to know more about it, let us know. Because some topics, there's so much to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, like Skinwalker Ridge did about 3 shows.
Yeah, and there's still more to talk about.
Oh, yeah. So
even missing 401, that's something we're going to do every so often.
There's
just so much.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. So, if you haven't already, please also head on over to iTunes, hit the subscribe button, and when you get a second, it takes a second, hit that 5-star rating. It helps other people find our show. It raises our profile in the iTunes algorithm, the charts, however they figure this stuff out.
The more people who like you, the more popular you are. So it's like high school. So
I guess.
Yeah. It's not like we're about being popular. We just want people to be able to find our show.
Just find the show. Right. And again, some people have actually had somebody ask me this. When you hit the subscribe button, what are you paying? You don't pay anything. So if you're somebody that is unaware, when you're hitting the subscribe button on iTunes for the podcast or any other platform that you're on, it's free. You're not paying anything. So don't let that stop you from just hitting subscribe.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, okay, I guess I never thought of it because it's just something we've always had, but some folks are not used to this kind of thing.
And if you don't use iTunes, just subscribe from whatever you're using. Spotify, Stitcher. We're on Stitcher now.
Google Play.
There's all different formats, so just subscribe on it.
Your podcast.
And if it gives you a chance to rate us, whether it be 5 stars or whatever the highest score possible is. Just give us that. Yeah. Please and thank you.
Yes. So, without further ado, unless you got anything else that you
That's
can...
it.
All right.
Yeah, just make a mess.
I'm breaking things here.
Yeah.
Crying out loud. Trying to get my music back here.
Not prepared.
It's not the case at all. Until next time, I am the Golden Greek Alexarian. I've been joined, as always, by my beautiful, lovely, gorgeous, amazing trophy wife, Monique.
And Six the cat. And you've been listening to the Homewrecker Podcast.